All right. Welcome, everyone. I have the honor of introducing Jessica DiRuzza to you today. Jessica is a breathtaking astrologer, a profound psychotherapist, a penetrating teacher, a fierce and loving wife, an incredible mother like none you've ever seen, and my favorite human being in this cosmos. She has been a practicing astrologer for 17 years and a licensed psychotherapist for 7 years. Rock that Saturn square, honey. She feels and empathizes like no other. She thinks against the grain of all we were once taught, and she creates words you've never heard of, yet intuitively understand. I had the surprising good fortune of falling in love with her under the waxing Jupiter-Uranus square of 2013, of marrying her under the opposition of 2017, of baptizing our daughter together here on the beach under the waning square of 2021, and today we all have the good fortune of hearing her speak to us under the Jupiter-Uranus conjunction. Please welcome Jessica Sophia DiRuzza.
Oh, oh, thank you for that deep honoring, Travis. You make me cry. That's so lovely to hear myself reflected in your eyes. And I'm just so touched that each and every single one of you is here with me today and that we get to come together in community under this current Jupiter Uranus conjunction in Taurus, and that we get to go on a journey together today. There's two things that I would like all of us to accomplish today, if you so choose to participate in these invitations. Whether you're here in this live version or you're seeing this later recorded, we're now entering into the realm of Jupiter and Uranus. I like to think of entering into a planetary combination as crossing a threshold from logical, rational space into enchanted, symbolic, metaphoric, multidimensional space. And every planetary pair has an offering that we can make it when we cross that threshold to enter into its intelligence, its wisdom, its guidance and medicine that I think the planets want to offer every single one of us as they hold sacred cosmic space for the theater of Earth. So, every single thing that happens from this point forward as we cross into this ritual and sacred space of Jupiter Uranus is Jupiter Uranus. Both the content of what I'm saying, my words, but also the form in which it's coming through. This is something that's really important in my metaphysics and cosmology, that the form and the content, we do our best to align the two. So the two things I want to accomplish today, now that we're inside of Jupiter Uranus's realm, is one, ritual magic toward greater freedom in your life, and two, my best philosophical understanding of the highest vibration and good that I think we can have when these two planets come into alignment, whether that's collectively as they are now in the anima mundi, the soul of the world, in these world transits, whether it's in your natal chart, or whether it's a personal transit that you have gone through and will go through. We're going to begin by having you write down 3 things that you can think of in this moment that you feel most called toward in our ritual magic, that you want to move toward greater freedom in your life. It can be any 3 things. It's best if it comes from an honest place and from your heart of hearts, something that you are ready for and truly desire. And you'll hear the Taurian inflections of the Jupiter-Uranus in the second earth sign, or the second sign of the zodiac and the earth sign. I'm going to flavor it all the way through. You're going to write those three things down that you want to move toward greater freedom in your life. And then we're going to return to it at the end. And if you need to revise those after what we discover together here today, then you'll get to do that. What we're doing today in part is analogous to a fire ceremony. But because it's Earth of Taurus, instead of burning the three things, we're going to bury them really deep into the earth so that they can germinate and grow in the gestation of darkness, get the nutrients of the soil, and then sprout up so that then we can sustainably harvest them over time. When it comes to putting in an intention, it's really important that it's something for you that's already been building in your life. We could give this example of something, let's say someone has a desire to quit smoking. You need to be ready to quit smoking in order to put that in this container. It can't be something where you're like, oh yeah, I'm ready, okay, let's just do it, blah, because that's just going to cause disruption and chaos, the shadow side of the Jupiter-Uranus conjunction. A big kind of manic flash in the pan that's very ungrounded and destabilized, that's just going to cause more turbulence and probably more self-judgment, which just really gets in the way of freedom. So we want you to be choosing three things that you're ready to do. Okay, so you'll have that, and then we'll return to it after I'm done speaking. I think there are requirements for the Jupiter-Uranus to go successfully. I think the first requirement is the facet of Jupiter that connects to gratitude. Jupiter is the planet that is about optimism. It's the planet that's about good fortune, abundance, blessings, gifts. And it's the part of the human psyche that not only can be positive, but chooses to orient one's perspective toward the goodness in one's life. No matter how difficult, problematic, or challenging things may be, Jupiter guides us towards an expansion and growth through choosing to focus on what is good or bountiful in our life. So when we choose to come from a place of gratitude for the things we already have, the way that the Jupiter-Uranus works is it naturally becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy of the prophetic nature of the prophet, which is Jupiter, of really big successful outcomes toward greater freedom and liberation in your life. The thing about gratitude and abundance is that it begets itself, just like negativity and criticism and judgment also begets itself. So whatever we're planting in our Taurian garden, and we're going to nurture and grow through our perspective and attitude, which is Jupiter. It's our worldview, it's our cosmology, it's how we make meaning, it's our principles and perspectives upon which we live. Then we naturally are giving the nutrients of that which we are seeding of one of faith, hope, belief, which naturally makes anything, including every single human being or idea, grow. Research shows us that if a human being has only one person who believes in them in their life, that person has infinite more possibility of living a successful life where their dreams and their hopes and their wishes come true. So Jupiter shows us and guides us and teaches us that when we want to enter in its realm of blessings and abundance and success and achievement and good fortune, the requirement is faith and belief. These are the guardians of the threshold into this magical, bountiful realm. Now, Uranus is the trickster. And the trickster inherently is a boundary crosser. A trickster is inherently playful and mischievous. And the trickster says, if you are willing to be adaptable, if you are willing to not have all the answers, if you are willing to live in the mystery and say yes to it coming into your life, if you are willing to let go of control and suspend disbelief, then perhaps you're welcoming me into your home, into your life, and into the center of your world, where then I can do my ritual, trickstery, playful magic, mischievous as it may be, as boundary crossing and paradoxical and reversing as it may be, to be in service of greater liberation and freedom in your life. Because our egoic consciousness, as the very, very small tip of the iceberg, isn't able to have the full Jupiterian story. Jupiter is the storyteller, the myth maker. It's symbolic. And Uranus comes in as the liberator of consciousness, of the fire that we seek for greater meaning and purpose, innovation, creativity, play in our life. The essence of what it means to be human and come here together in co-creation. And it says, if you believe in me as the trickster and you let me do my job, then I will give you what you ultimately want for your highest good, whether you know it or not. But in that, I am going to shatter your paradigm of all that you thought you knew. And I'm going to break it open into ever expanding new horizons, new realities of new ideas and new perception. When's the last time your worldview changed? When's the last time you had a paradigm shift? Jupiter-Uranus is a time when we come in to these paradigm shifts where our worldview has an opportunity to change so that we can grow into a higher, better version of not only ourselves, but of the Uranian need for humanity. Uranus is our humanitarianism. It is about the individual in the collective, the unique originality of every single human being doing their unique, original blueprint in service of the whole, of the collective, of the future human. And the Jupiter-Uranus time period are these time periods of these quantum leaps in consciousness where the atoms are vibrating here and then suddenly, unexpectedly, they go to here. We as humans, our bodies, our psyches, are conductors of energy. We're made up of 60 to 70% of water. We are a fabulous conductor of electricity. Uranus is electricity. So how do we become the channel to align ourselves for that electric surge to move through us and our bodies, which is what Taurus wants, so that we can usher in a greater vision for ourselves and our lives, for our loved ones around us? How do we do that? Well, we do it by taking the inherent posture and nature of Jupiter-Uranus. We have faith, we have gratitude, we have flexibility, we have adaptability. These things are way easier said than done in a world of so much certainty, in a world where there's such a hyper need to control every last facet of existence, our hyper schedules, our hyper productivity. Most people aren't present in their life. Most people don't live right now. Most people don't feel safe letting go of control. So what I've seen with the Jupiter-Uranus alignments and all the people I've worked with over the last 17 years is this. Those who say yes to the sudden surprise, those that say yes to the shocking news, those who say yes to the disruptions in the plan, are the ones who tend to come out through the other side successfully, having grown into a more expanded state of being, a more bountiful state in life, where there's greater boon and riches of all kinds, from material to emotional to physical and psychological and spiritual. For those who take the posture of the Uranian surprise that maybe shocks you, blows your mind, drops your jaw, makes you very confused, and stops and says, okay, this is here for a reason. This isn't an accident. This isn't some random mistake. And to even take that more deeply and say, whoever you are and however you are is not random, an accident, or a mistake. And so Uranus is about, at its core, our individuality and our authenticity of being who we really are. And so what we have to do in order to enter into the bounty of Uranus is actually be willing to risk and have the courage. And this is the aspect of the risk-taking gambler of Jupiter-Uranus, to be authentically who we are, to unmask into our individuality and originality at all costs. Now, again, easier said than done. But what I have seen is this. The chaos and the strife that can come with Jupiter-Uranus times tends to land more heavily upon the shoulders of someone living in greater degrees of inauthenticity. Because Uranus, as the trickster and that boundary crosser, will do anything to shake you out of your conditioning, of your status quo, of your normality, in order to bring you into that individuality and originality that it so demands of us. So the more rigid we are, the more controlling we are, typically the more challenging that energy is. The more open we are, the more flexible we are, the more we have faith and trust in what is happening in your life. Typically, what happens is you get this sudden, unexpected rebirth and renewal into a much more vast world that is more creative, more alive, more free, and more playful. So I want to bring in my old school whiteboard, because I love a good whiteboard. And some of you will remember my affinity for whiteboards and chalkboards. And I want to bust it out because I want to break down for you how we can do this in a step-by-step process, so that when we're not here in community together, you can play around and do this with yourself and see where this exercise takes you. Because I think it's really important as astrologers who are living with these archetypes that we're able to continuously keep them alive And the only way I know how to do that is by returning to them again and again from a new place. And this is one way that I do this in my own practice, and I think is something that is very successful in being able to move with these archetypes. So what we're going to do is we're going to start in the collective unconscious, where all the archetypes, symbols live across all time and all cultures. And then we're going to move up through the personal unconscious, which is your own personal history and lineage. And then we're going to move into either the pre-conscious or subconscious level, which are all those memories right beneath the surface that you can readily, easily access, but aren't always there, that kind of pop up into your conscious mind. And we're going to bring it up like a well and out for epiphany, because Jupiter-Uranus is epiphanic consciousness. And what it's trying to do through revelation and insight is get us to have a transcendent experience that brings us into a more expanded state of awareness, to get the meta perspective and a new symbolic story on what's going on. Because so much of the revisioning of the story that's happening right now happens through getting a new perspective. And so Jupiter-Uranus is the mountaintop vision and getting that meta view in order to be able to see things from that kind of royal or regal place that Jupiter occupies, which is an elevated state of consciousness that is lovingly detached in order to be able to read your life symbolically and not so personally, which is really important when we're working with these energies. So Jupiter's going to be blue, and we're going to start with Jupiter. And what we're going to do is we're going to start with one principle of Jupiter, and we're just going to take the principle of expansion, since it's the largest planet in our solar system. It was going to be a second sun, but the asteroid belt prevented that from happening, and the gravitational forces, instead of being a dual star system, we are a single star system thanks to Jupiter. So Jupiter, in its principle of expansion, and we're going to do it to all things Uranus, and then we'll reverse it. So the first thing we do is we go, okay, Jupiter wants to expand change, right? This is at the collective unconscious level. So this is a universally shared archetypal phenomena that all of us are going through right now as a species, which is what the world transits are, right? The anima mundi, the soul of the world, it's showing us in this particular cycle and season of time for all of humanity where humanity is at and what's being asked of us. So Jupiter expands change, it expands rebellion, it expands revolution and revolt, it expands rebellion, it expands innovation and experimentation, it expands technology and the radical breakthroughs of new ideas, it expands experimentation, which is a requirement for new things. It expands the principle of rebirth and renewal. It expands progress, so it's very growth set oriented and very much takes a cosmological vision of the universe as being open. Instead of fixed, it's open. Instead of closed, it's open. That's a very Jupiter-Uranus domain. So we want to take the cosmological take of the planetary combination into mind, so that when we're coming from that place in our participation with it, we're honoring its truth to align ourselves as conductors of the energy so that it can flow through our personal life and our personal unconscious into our pre-conscious, into our conscious mind as epiphanic awareness to change our perspective to give us greater freedom. That's the teleological unfolding or the narrative arc of what this realm wants. Every planetary pair has its own mythological universe and has its own inherent coherent story. And when we know what the full story is, then we can locate ourselves within that story. We can know where we just came from in it, and then we can know where it wants us to go, which gives us empowerment and encouragement to go further, right? Which we all need, because life is scary and really barely anybody knows what the fuck's going on. So, um, Jupiter also wants to expand the process of creativity. Uranus is like the high mind, and it definitely has visionary qualities to it. Prometheus is about the future. So we come back to that idea of prophecy and prophetic vision. Jupiter also expands the process of unpredictability and chaos. So it's a time period where we live in greater uncertainty, we live in greater states of the unknown. And when we are able to be flexible and adaptable within that, then we're able to be better conductors of that energy. When we pull a kind of shadow Saturn move where we want to control it or clamp it down, block it, then we tend to cause more suffering for us within the chaos. So we can use Jupiter and amplify the chaos, or we can use Jupiter and go with the experimentation, innovation, and change that Uranus wants. Jupiter also expands disruption. We're seeing that all across the world right now. And it expands upheaval. But it also expands a humanitarian vision. Okay, so now we're going to reverse that, and we're going to take the one principle of Uranus, change. Yeah, who doesn't love a whiteboard? Ah! And then we're going to take it to all the principles of Jupiter. Okay. So, Uranus wants to change your beliefs. Are you willing to change your beliefs about yourself? Are you willing to change your beliefs about your life? Are you willing to change your beliefs about your worldview? Are you willing to change your beliefs about your paradigm? Are you willing to change your beliefs about your work? Are you willing to change your beliefs about how you think humans are? Take things. I double dog dare you to take the top 3 things you believe in the most in life, Jupiter, and see if you have been or are willing to change those beliefs about it. Double dog dare you to see what happens there, because then you're honoring this energy and you're getting more out of it. Now, I don't know about all this optimization culture. I don't even really know what the fuck that means. But it does relate to this energy, in so that if you're willing to change your beliefs about the things you hold most dear, then that means you're staying in that place of conductivity, of being flexible and open, which is the requirement of this energy in order to not unnecessarily suffer. Uranus wants to change your faith. It also wants to change your religious views and your spiritual views. It wants to change your cultural views. It wants to change your cultural views of family, your cultural views of work, your cultural views of money, your cultural views of running a household, your cultural views of what you think you should be. It wants to change your shoulds. It wants to change your dogma, the shadow side of Jupiter, the ways in which you're dogmatic, the ways in which I'm dogmatic, the ways in which we're ideological. It wants to change that, right? So it changes that through disruption. It changes that through shock and awe. It changes that through surprise. But that's what it's doing, and that's what it's wanting. Uranus also changes our philosophy. Jupiter is our philosophy in life. So it changes our philosophy on things. It changes our principles. It also changes our fortune. And that is a value neutral statement. So for some people, when Uranus changes their fortune, it can go in the direction of, wow, that sudden windfall of money, that sudden windfall of resources, that sudden inheritance, or that sudden opportunity to get a promotion or to buy a home or to go into a new career. But it can also change our fortune in the other way, where it can be the kind of sudden, unexpected downfall from, like, maybe we took a really big risk and we put it all on the line and we invested in crypto and then we lost it. Or maybe it's the change in fortune where, we weren't being really grounded and measured in our decisions, and we took a big risk and we lost it. It's the other side of the gamble. So it's a value neutral statement, but it's the change in fortune or the change in luck in one's life. Then you can go into and statements and you pair the two together, and that gives us a different kind of relationality to them. For example, we can get, and I'm just going to do Jupiter first and then Uranus just so you can hear the pattern recognition. And so we get something like this: adventure and risk taking. And this is where you see during these times a lot of people doing new kinds of travel and exploration, whether that's out in the world, like, wow, I just went to this new country or this new culture, had this new anthropological experience, like that kind of incredible peak experience through traveling. Or it can be the adventure and the risk taking that happens intrapsychically through going into non-ordinary and expanded states of consciousness, through meditation, entheogens, right? Where you can kind of have this internal peak experience through epiphanic consciousness. And the original word of epiphany actually meant seeing a divine being. And so it's contact with the angelic or transcendent realms. And that's very much what Jupiter-Uranus is about. Or it can be social change and progress. And we can see the shadow side coming through as Jupiter as extravagance, and then the kind of overconfidence that accompanies that. So that's something I really encourage everyone to play around with, and you can do that for any combination in your life. And it's endless, it's infinite what we can do with that. And I think that it's something that keeps these symbols alive. So what we have to do once we get those universal principles like we just did is then we have to take the time to correlate them to our actual personal lives. So then we bring it up from the collective unconscious through the personal unconscious, and then we want to bring it into the conscious mind. So one thing we can do with that is we can use time to help us with that. So for example, we look at the cycle of time of Jupiter and Uranus, and we say this particular conjunction that's happening right now in Taurus began with a 15-degree orb of influence, which is what we use in archetypal astrology for world transits, in June of 2023. It got within 7 degrees before it stationed retrograde, and it's going to be exact for the first time next Sunday, April 20th, 2024, a week from today. It ends completely with that 15-degree orb of influence in July of 2024. So Jupiter's a 12-year cycle around the sun. Uranus is an 84-year cycle around the sun. When you pair them together, they're a 14-year cycle of time from conjunction to conjunction. The last one was in late Pisces, early Aries in 2010 and 2011, right where the Saturn-Neptune conjunction is going to happen next year in Aries. And then the next conjunction is in 2038 in the middle part of Cancer. So it's a huge, it's 14 years for humans is a pretty long cycle of time. And what we can do temporally is we can go back and look at what was going on for you in 2010, 2011, mapped onto these universal themes that I just shared with you, and then see what was going on, and then see the arc of that evolutionary development of that story to now, and the kind of culmination point of it in this current moment in time, and then what I would consider to be kind of like a spiralic up-leveling into the next phase of it until 2038. So the other thing you can do is I would encourage you to go back over this past year to last June through now, and then through what will be July, and write out all of the most significant events that have happened for you that had a quality of shocking you, of surprising you, of disturbing you, of making you flabbergasted, making you speechless, making you just, your jaw drop, the blood running out of your face. These are Jupiter-Uranus experiences. This is the level of surprise. It's very big, radical surprises, right? So the more kind of shocking and surprising the event, the more Jupiter-Uranus it is. And I would bet you anything that you have had those since last June and through now, and through the exactitude for the rest of this month in May, where it's going to be really potent and strong, that will continue to happen. So Jupiter-Uranus signifies the plot twists in our life. And what you do is you take the temporal time of the transit, and then you take the universal principles I just gave you, and I'm going to give you more, and then you correlate that to your life. And instead of saying, did this happen? Oh my God, the one that kills me the most. No, nothing like that happened. And then you start talking to them and you're like, oh my God, your whole life is that. Anyways, neither here nor there, but kind of always here, is we want to say, not did this happen? We want to say, I wonder what did happen because I trust that it's happening and that it's going to keep happening. And when we do that, what we're granted in that process of curiosity, faith, and trust, which is what the Jupiter-Uranus wants, is the insight and revelation into the why it's happening. And that's where the meaning making of Jupiter comes in being able to tell a more whole story of your life. And that's part of what the plot twist wants, is it wants to get you to be able to see a larger perspective on your personal life than you have up until this point. And that's part of the potential shock and awe. Now, I'm going to go in a little bit more to the variation of the spectrum of Jupiter-Uranus and why I think in part it happens. Okay. The longer something's been building in your psyche, the longer it's been in your personal unconscious and your sub or preconscious, then typically the kind of more grand or larger than life the Jupiter-Uranus experience is going to be for you once it hits your conscious mind. Now, to the outside world, it's going to look sudden, shocking, surprising, potentially disruptive, potentially juvenile, potentially irresponsible. But to you, in your subjectivity and knowing your story and inhabiting it from the inside, is gonna hopefully make all the sense you need to trust your choice in choosing the greater freedom that you're needing in your life right now, to free you from whatever, and I mean this in a non-judgmental way, though I'm going to use Saturn words, anything in your life that has been oppressive, limiting, stuck, judgmental, critical, thwarted. So wherever the kinks and the knots have been in your psyche or your life that are wanting to unfurl and unknot, the Jupiter-Uranus is going to come in and it's going to, like an electric bolt of lightning, come in and go kapow and open it up and say, no, we need to open this current to move this energy through to give you more of your energy back, give you your life force, give you your choice, give you your agency, give you your freedom, give you your magic, give you your play, because that's the desired outcome here. So wherever there are kinks, which we all have in us, from time and space and conditioning and all beliefs and all that stuff that we've inherited as human beings, Jupiter-Uranus comes in and it laser cut focuses on those things in your life. So the greater the oppression, the greater magnitude the Jupiter-Uranus is going to be felt in your life. Now, for some people, that experience is going to feel more subtle and nuanced. Some of that has to do with where it's aspecting your natal chart. Some of that has to do with the age that you're at, right? Some of that has to do with whether or not you're choosing to amplify the transit through entheogens, right? There's so many different variations of why that happens. But sometimes what I'll notice is sometimes epiphanies are more subtle and gentle and nuanced. And when we listen closely to them, the Jupiter-Uranus doesn't necessarily come through in a way that's so disruptive or chaotic. It comes through more in this kind of, oh, and the lotus blossom opens. There's the gem you've been looking for. I'm going to pick it up and carry along with my walk and pick my flowers, right? Instead of like, holy fucking shit, I'm in the wrong garden. You know, this isn't even my garden. How did I end up here? What is going on? I don't even like daisies, and I'm allergic to lavender. What the fuck happened? I have no idea. Time to go. It's not always like that, you know? Sometimes the trickster is coyote medicine. Sometimes the trickster is the briar patch. And sometimes the trickster is a quiet chuckle or a gentle tickle. It's just depends where we're at in life. And so in either case, when we tune into that, then what ends up happening is we allow for the unkinking and unknotting to take place, hopefully with the least amount of judgment to self and our situation as possible. Yeah, I'm going to give you one image for those of you who like some of the kind of like more worldly archetypes. So Jupiter's the king or the queen, and Uranus is a combination of different roles in the kingdom all at once. The most common one to think of is the court jester, right? So you can get an image of the queen or the king having their event, and then the court jester comes. And what's the court jester get to do that nobody else gets to do? They get to speak to the truth. They get to unmask and derobe the king and the queen and all their persona and speak to the truth, no matter how taboo it is. So the trickster or the court jester holds secret knowledge and truth that has the power to make everybody humorously laugh at the stark naked truth of reality before them, and not having to pretend that something else is going on than what is actually going on. Another version of it, and here let's imagine the queen, and we get the high priestess, who can be an energy of Uranus, a channel to the heavens through the crown, and bestows prophecy and insight and revelation to the queen so that she can better lead. Jupiter is the teacher, it's the leader, it's our confidence, it's that inner queendom or kingdom where we have direct access to source or to the divine, right? That democratization of spiritual connection, which is what Jupiter-Uranus wants. But it's also the queen sitting there with the scientist, artist, and cultural renaissance of Da Vinci, who comes in and has these radical ideas that everybody else thinks is blasphemous, and she has the wisdom to know who to listen to, and incredible inventions take place. Incredible inventions that advance society, which is what Jupiter-Uranus wants. It's the really big inventions that advance humanity. So we classically look at history like the invention of the wheel, and we go, holy moly, now we're a new species. Or we do that with the printing press. Holy moly, now we get to have private thoughts in our home by ourselves where nobody else is telling us what to think. Whoa, what does that do to humans? And then we get the invention of electricity. And we have gratitude for our technology because we get to be here today all across the world through these devices, right? And so the queen and the high inventor, who tends to be this beautiful Uranian mix of science and art, gives us the ability to advance ourselves. Now, that's happening on a societal level, but that's also happening on an individual level for you right now. If you stop and take a look around in your life right now, there are new scientific, artistic advancements that are coming into your life that are wanting to help support you in your growth if you allow them to do so. So what you do is you say, I would be a writer if such and such, such and such. And then you say, okay, I want to be a writer. I would be a writer if, and then whatever is after the if, you ask yourself, I wonder if there's either a piece of technology or a new form of collaborating that would provide a creative solution to this thing that blocks me from writing. Because Jupiter-Uranus says that if you have a problem, there is a creative solution to that problem if you're willing to open yourself to it. That's what it says. It says that there is a creative solution to just about everything. And that's the paradox of the trickster that is inherently both Saturn and Uranus. For every problem, there is a solution. Right? That's just kind of how it works here on Earth. So the Jupiter-Uranus helps us tune in more to the creative solution sides of things for our own personal and collective growth. Okay, shadow side. If there was a combination that didn't want to look at its shadow side, it would be this one. Jupiter-Uranus has about zero interest in looking at the problems it can create. And in that way, it can be a kind of hypo, a hypo-juvenile energy. So it can kind of be like this possession state of what Jung would call the puer or the puella, right? And so sometimes this energy can come through in a very juvenile, rebel without a cause, I'm gonna fuck shit up just because I can, without a higher purpose to the disruption, which is what the trickster is ultimately doing when we're using ourselves as a conductor of its highest expression, is it's in service of our humanity and our liberation and our freedom. So Jupiter-Uranus in its shadow form can be like a toddler stomping its feet and destroying everything. Like my daughter, for example, God bless her soul. She sees all the things laid out nicely on the counter, and do you know what she wants to do sometimes, just for the sake of it? Is go BAM! And knocks it all off. I'm sure she's getting a lot of sensory input out of that. It's visually stimulating, she likes the sound, and mama's stuff is gone missing and it's broken and I can't find anything and my house looks a little bland these days because I have to hide all my precious jewels and gems because she will just destroy them. Jupiter-Uranus times are times where us as individuals and humanity as a whole can destroy things just because we have the technology and the ability to shoot fucking missiles in the air and do it. Ooh, I don't know. That's not really the world I want to live in. However, we do have free will, and so that's one way we do it. Okay, well, that comes with the territory. Another shadow side of Jupiter-Uranus is it can be a really ungrounded, unstable energy where the lightning bolt comes in and everything gets disrupted, and there's this momentary illumination, and I see all the things that need to be done, and then I do none of them. I do zero of the things that I have been shown to do. The messages are coming in, my higher self is coming in, source is coming in, higher power is coming in, but I'm not taking the time and the risk to listen and to embody it in a sustainable way. So it can be the energy that's not only unstable, but not sustainable. The reason why so far we can't use lightning as a conductor for energy is because all of the voltage gets used to create the lightning bolt. That's the shadow side of Jupiter-Uranus. It's like all the voltage gets used for the epiphany. I have this peak experience, and then nothing happens with it. I am actually not allowed by the universe to teach Jupiter-Uranus without bringing in Saturn. It's like kind of this like oath I had to take. And so, and this is the part that Taurus shows us, because Taurus, as an earth sign, is about embodiment and sustainability. And it wants to take the time and the effort through those earth qualities of commitment and routine to implement the changes. To implement, because you have the faith, you believe in it, but then you're willing to do the follow through. The follow through of all of the Jupiter-Uranus insights and revelations that you've been given this past year. We're moving into the phase of the transit, especially after May, where it's the follow through of it, it's the embodiment of it, it's the implementation of it, in order to actually have that movement toward the greater freedom that it's wanting. It can be the aftermath of a big crash from really high heights. I know someone who just lost millions of dollars from some decisions that weren't the most sound. That's a brutal one to witness. Flash in the pan, and it can just be really immature. Not in service. Shall I go into a personal example to help us ground it? Because guys, to be honest, I feel like this is the number one issue we have in the astrological community above all else. Is we have a hard time really connecting it to our own life, and then taking all of the signs and messages that we're getting and actually doing something about it. I feel like that's our number one issue. What do you guys think? Do you think that's our number one issue? Do we have a number one issue? It's really hard to shock me. I think because of the nature of who I am, and I get to listen to like the most incredible stories for a living. I get to listen to your stories. I've heard so much. And so it's really hard to like surprise me. I'm actually a very hard person to surprise, like if you want to throw me a surprise. But it's also the thing I love the most. So it's a little bit of a contradiction there. And it's really difficult at this point, just because I've gone so far out with my deconditioning and paradigm breaking with astrology and psychology and entheogens and, you know, all that stuff, to have a paradigm shift. I kind of embarrassed to say I thought they were over for me. And then last year, during the Jupiter-Uranus conjunction, I had a paradigm shift. I had a breakthrough in my paradigm, which is what Jupiter-Uranus is about, if we're lucky enough, right? And what happened was our daughter, Luz Sophia, she's 3.5, and she was mostly non-speaking. Like truly, like only a couple words. Wasn't doing the typical milestones of like pointing and waving and the stuff that when we all expect from a toddler. And so we got support and we discovered that she's autistic. And in that process, I came across, fortunately, the best, most progressive, compassionate, forward-thinking Jupiter-Uranus material there is out there around being autistic, and was reading this handbook, and within 72 hours of realizing that my daughter is autistic, I realized that I'm autistic. And I was sobbing, just sobbing, reading this handbook. Because not only did I see my beautiful daughter in this handbook, every last part, but I saw myself, and I saw my childhood, and I saw how my whole life I've been autistic, and that my whole life, as many of us are coming to realize, was conditioned to hide it, to mask it, to not be it, by my family and by my school. I was literally told things like, don't rock back and forth, don't jiggle your leg, don't show signs that you can't control your energy, don't show signs that you're anxious, don't show signs that you're worried. Don't ask for help. Don't let anybody know you need any help. But use all those gifts you have of being autistic for us. And make sure that your self-worth and your value comes from using those gifts. Hyperlexia, self-taught to read, could read at an advanced age by the age of 7, was asked by the school to read all the textbooks for the middle school and high schoolers, audio record it before Audible, so that other people who had learning disabilities could get books on tape. So I was pulled out of class to read these textbooks, none of which I understood, using my gift of hyperlexia as one example for these people, while not getting zero support for everything that I was struggling around in my sensory needs. Most people who are autistic have a sensory processing disorder, right? A hyper or hyposensitivity to the 8 senses, and everyone has a different version of it. Well, none of my sensory processing needs were taken care of, and so I lived in extreme states of anxiety that manifested, as it does for most of us, especially young girls, as stomach aches, headaches, separation anxiety, an inability to be alone, scared of the dark, not knowing how to take care of oneself. And so I was taught to hide those things. I was taught to not tell anybody that those things were going on for me, while at the same time being paraded around for my other autistic gifts, like being highly intuitive, even psychic, listening to people's problems and making them feel better, using my special interests of people and relationships to help my parents and my grandparents and my aunts and my uncles and my cousins from the age of 5. I was the family counselor who sat in court with these people as they let out all of their secrets, all of their problems, all of their issues, turned to me for my sage wisdom and advice. So I'm sobbing and sobbing reading this handbook and recognizing that everything I was taught about being autistic was 100% wrong, including the fact that it's genetic, it's usually passed down through the mother, it's not a disease, it's not even a disorder, there's absolutely nothing wrong with it, it's not bad, it's nothing to be ashamed of, it is something to get support around. And when it's not tended to, what ends up happening is it turns into mental illness. And I come from a long line of mental illness and alcoholism. When being autistic as a neurological difference in development of the brain isn't tended to, and you're taught to mask, as so many of us have been, you're more prone to not only mental illness, but you're also more prone to abuse, particularly sexual abuse, which I was, incest. Because autistic children are very innocent, they tend to not have boundaries and the same social cues as neurotypical children. And so this innocence and this lack of boundaries gets taken advantage of by predators. And so we have to advocate for our autistic children, not only so they don't have to mask, so they don't have to live in anxiety and despair and confusion and self-hatred and self-harm, with a high rate of suicidality and self-harm, cutting, all of that. But that we also need to give them self-advocacy of having a no so they don't experience abuse, especially sexual abuse, but abuse of any kind. And so what I had to realize was that the people who taught me not to be autistic were autistic, trying to survive, I'm sure, doing their best. And then I wake up that my daughter's autistic, and the best way that I can take care of her is to realize that I'm autistic and to show up for her and support her in the way she needed, that I always needed all along. And that holographic lunar healing that happens in and out of space-time when we tend to the karma that's present and the hand that is dealt. And so I could take the revelation that I am in a lineage of being autistic and neurodiverse, and I could reject it like my ancestors did and continue harm. Or I could accept it, make a pivot, open my mind, open my paradigm, take it as truth, have faith, and see where the universe wants to take me and my daughter in the future human of unmasking. Because we have incredible things to bring to the evolution of our species as a natural and necessary variation in the human brain. A natural and necessary human variation in the brain that almost every significant Uranian figure has. Da Vinci, Mozart, Edison. And you don't have to be famous, and you don't have to contribute something grand. Fuck that pressure. But the fact is that a lot of the people who have made the most Uranian advances, Jupiter-Uranus advances in our human history, have likely been autistic. Because the way that we perceive reality is different, which allows us to have different thought forms that typically are outside of the norms and conditioning that we receive by society, because a lot of us don't place value in hierarchy. The thing that saved me from hell, of thinking that I was going to hell because I wasn't Christian growing up, was me sitting in the depths of my contemplation night after night in elementary school going, what the fuck? The people who wrote this Bible are people just like me. If there is a Jesus, he's a human just like me. Well, by golly, then why do they get to say what this world is more than me? Why do they get to say what's right and what's wrong and how the human is with God and not? And it's the autistic brain that doesn't place the same values in hierarchy that oftentimes neurotypical brains do. So the paradigm shift of waking up to being autistic not only shatters generations of pain and suffering in my lineage going in both directions, but it affords me a better quality of life that is more creative, more playful, more authentic, more genuine, more loving within my own self and with my daughter than ever could be before. That's the magnitude of what I'm talking about here. And I hope, to the best of my human ability, my participation and stance with this energy to embody everything that I've shared with you today. One last thing. It's really important within the astrological community when we come across folks who are neurodiverse that if this is going to happen, let's get informed from compassionate, neurodiverse affirming perspectives. But let's also be sure that we don't tell that person they're just really Uranian. That's a disservice to that person. It's not actually helpful. So you might be, but also it's okay too if you're autistic. All right, you guys, thank you so much. We're now going to mark the transition from what I just shared into our Q&A by this lovely dance music video. And I'm going to be so excited to answer your questions, but I know that that was a lot. So now we're going to do this awesome transition that Travis is going to take us through.
Thank you so much, Jess. That was amazing. Love it. Yeah, so what you're about to see and listen to, it's an artistic interpretation of the Jupiter-Uranus combination. This comes from the Trust Psyche course, The Planetary Pairs. It's available on our website. And so with the collaboration of other artists, I created one of these for each of the 45 archetypal combinations. Each one features a dance, as you'll see, by Soleil Chappelle, set to music that I've created. And so what Soleil's doing here is she's combining movement qualities that she's assigned to each of the planetary archetypes. This isn't how she feels or what she thinks about the archetype, but for example, Venus has to do with a swinging motion. Mars has to do with a thrusting motion. And so the idea is that by embodying the archetypes and these fundamental movement qualities, we can actually kind of do research and get kinesthetic insight into the meaning of the archetypes through our bodily knowing. So one of the fun things about that course is that you're invited to try out these movement qualities and to dance the archetypes. And so in this one, of course, Jupiter, it has to do with expansion, movement away from the core of the body. When she finds her limits, she searches for ways to move beyond them. Movement from lower to higher elevations, slightly exaggerated movements, all qualities of Jupiter. And she combines this with movement qualities of Uranus. Unanticipated movements, inversions of movements, right side up to upside down, changes of orientation, left to right. She tries to surprise herself with her own movements, not really knowing what will come out, just letting the body take over and see what happens. The painting that you're going to see at the beginning is by our dear friend and colleague, Contessa Magdalena, who's here with us today. It is titled Fly. I'll say a couple words about the music after we listen. And lastly, I just want to thank Tara Swasti, who sings over this. So if you got headphones handy, feel free to put them on, and we'll have a listen. It's just 2 minutes long. Yeah, so just a couple words about the music, the chaotic music there at the beginning. It's meant to depict that disruption of Uranus. There's a sort of shadow Jupiterian feeling of too much, too many notes, too much sound. But that ultimately gives way to that rising synth sound that takes off, airborne, flies, launched into the Jupiterian airs. The joyous kind of anthem chorus that follows is the celebration of a surprise well received after that initial off-kilter shakiness. Both the synth rise and the looped phrase that comes after reflect that technological side of Uranus. It's almost as if we could have stayed in that initial overwhelming and frenetic chaos if we hadn't had the grace and the faith that transforms it into the more celebratory second part. The angelic voice over the top evokes that faith with a slight, almost chuckle and eccentric quality to the voice towards the end, bringing the trickster back in, laughing and delighting at the whole spectacle of it all.
Thank you so much, Travis. Thank you so much, Soleil and Tessa and Tara. I just wanted to let you all know that most of you are probably here because you got our most recent newsletter, and that goes out just like a small handful times a year. For those of you who want to know about like every astrology video we put out and podcast and event, if you go to trustpsyche.com on the homepage, there's a place to enter your email, and that just sends you a notification in your inbox every time we release something, instead of just like a few times a year, just in case you want to stay more connected to the work that we're doing. Or you can also follow us on Instagram at trust.psyche if you like to do that as well. I'm super stoked. I mean, Trust Psyche just celebrated our 10th anniversary, and Trav and I were pulling up all the numbers so I could see it. And we've recorded 6 courses, and there's over 200 hours of material, including what you just saw there. And my mind was blown by that. I was like, who has something to say for 200 hours? Well, guys, I have something to say for at least 200 more hours. We're actually going to do a new course this fall. It's official. We're doing synastry and composite charts. So for those of you who want to do that, it's going to be super duper epic. So yeah, I just wanted to say that. And also for any of you who are wanting an astrology reading, Travis is giving those. They're going phenomenally. He also does counseling with astrology. And then I have my psychotherapy practice with individuals and couples, but I also do supervision now, and I'm loving it. It's awesome. It brings me so much joy for other therapists who are bringing astrology into their practice. So just wanted to let you know that in case you or any person within the next 40 years would like to do that. So we return back to the ritual magic of the 3 things that we wrote down at the beginning, that are the 3 things we want to move to greater freedom in our life. And we want to see if those 3 things that we wrote down still are true, given what we just experienced. And if they are, great, let's keep them. Or if they need to be either revised or replaced based on new information that's come in or new perspective that's come in today, then let's do that. What we're going to do is when you're ready, you're going to take those 3 things that you want to move towards greater freedom during this Jupiter-Uranus, and we are in some way, whatever way feels right to you, going to bury it deep in the ground, deep in the earth. You could go dig a hole in a yard and bury it. You can do it in your mind visually. You can do it, listening to Crosby, Stills, Nash, and I think Young in Find the Cost of Freedom. Okay? You can do it however you want to do it. There are no rules here to that part of it. However, the ritual magic of moving towards greater freedom of this particular invocation is to bury it deep in the ground. And then let's watch and see what happens for the rest of this cycle and beyond. That's the ritual magic. Thank you to each and every single one of you who has shown up today, who has participated, who has given both Travis and I the great honor of your time and your attention. We have such a deep in, endearment for you, and we are sending each and every single one of you all of our love, all of our blessings, all of our well wishes, for not only your highest good, but to the enjoyment of your freedom and your freedom path, whatever that may look like, and wherever you're at on it now. We are always here in any way that feels right to you. Please reach out to us. We look forward to being together again in sacred space. I just don't know how to let you know how delighted I am by today, but I just am. Travis, do you want to say anything as we say goodbye?
I just want to send my love and gratitude to all of you. It's always so special to share sacred space together. And thank you, Jessica, for being our fearless leader into the unknown surprises of Jupiter-Uranus. May it rain down its blessings upon us all.
Rain down, rain down, rain down. Until next time.